Tomorrow morning, there is a decent chance you are going to wake up and feel like the day already owns you. You will lie there for a few seconds, staring at the ceiling, trying to negotiate with time like it is a landlord. 5 more minutes would be perfect. 10 would fix your personality. A whole extra hour might turn you into the kind of person who drinks water, answers messages, and does not feel personally attacked by daylight. Then reality shows up again. You remember what has to be done. Maybe you have work. Maybe you have school. Maybe you have responsibilities waiting in the background, quietly multiplying like mold. And before your feet even touch the floor, the day already has that familiar modern feeling, like your life is a checklist someone else started writing before you were born. That feeling is so normal now that we barely question it. A day is something we manage, defend, waste, optimize, and then feel guilty about afterward. Even when we are resting, some little part of the brain is still standing there with a clipboard, asking whether this counts as recovery, or if we are just being useless in a slightly horizontal position. But for almost all of human history, nobody woke up and thought, I have to go to work. They woke up into a world that needed them, obviously. Hunger and weather were both very real. Ancient life was not some barefoot vacation, where everyone wandered around eating berries and discovering inner peace. If you dropped a modern office worker into that world with no preparation, bro would be emotionally finished before lunch. But work, as we understand it, the thing with fixed hours, bosses, wages, schedules, and the feeling that your time belongs to a system, is a very recent invention. So what did ancient humans actually do all day before work existed? The easy answer is survival, but that answer is too small. It makes ancient people sound like animals in a nature documentary, just hunting, eating, sleeping, and trying not to become a snack. And yes, survival was always there, but humans were never just survival machines. Even very early humans were social, curious, emotional, creative, and weird in all the familiar ways. The better question is what a day felt like when it was not built around a job. Imagine waking up long before cities, farms, clocks, or money. You do not wake because an alarm screams at you from a glowing rectangle. You wake because the light has changed, because someone nearby is moving, because your body knows the morning is arriving. Before you think in words, you are already noticing things. The air is colder than yesterday. The fire is weaker. The birds sound normal, or maybe they do not. That last part matters more than we realize. Modern life trains us to ignore the world unless something is actively bothering us. Ancient life trained people to read it. A footprint was not decoration. A broken branch was not random. The smell of rain, the movement of animals, the silence of a place that should have sound, all of it could become information. The world was not background. The world was the screen. So a huge part of the ancient day was attention. That sounds almost too simple, but it changes everything. If you live outside the modern bubble, paying attention is not a personality trait, it is how you stay alive. You learn where certain plants grow after rain. You notice when animals start moving differently. You build a map of the world inside your head because there is no other place to store it. Of course, food still mattered every day, but food was not just one dramatic spear throwing scene where a heroic hunter brings home a giant animal and everyone acts like he won the Super Bowl. In many hunter-gatherer groups, gathering was just as important and often more reliable. Finding food meant memory, patience, timing, and a ridiculous amount of plant knowledge. You had to know what was ready, what was safe, and what looked innocent but was basically nature's way of saying, try me and find out. Hunting had its own kind of intelligence. It was not only strength, it meant reading tracks, understanding movement, and sometimes following an animal long enough that the whole thing became less like an action scene and more like a very serious argument between patience and hunger. So yes, ancient humans worked in a sense, but their effort was tied directly to life. You looked for food because people needed to eat. You fixed a tool because it had to work later. You kept the fire alive because the night was coming. The connection between action and meaning was right there in front of you. That is one reason modern work can feel so strange. A person today can spend 8 hours moving information around a laptop and still end the day wondering what actually happened. You can be exhausted from messages, meetings, and tiny digital obligations that somehow drain the soul without leaving much evidence behind. Ancient tasks were not easier, but they were usually more visible. If you made something, there it was. If you prepared food, someone ate. Ancient humans also spent time making and repairing things, but even that was probably woven into the day more naturally than we imagine. Someone might shape a stone edge while talking near the fire. Someone might teach a child how to recognize a useful plant without turning it into a formal lesson. The day did not need a meeting title. Things were learned because they were happening. And then there was the social world. This might be the biggest difference between their day and ours. Ancient humans were almost never truly alone in the modern sense. The group was not an optional social feature. It was survival, identity, safety, and emotional life all tangled together. If people liked you, trusted you, and remembered your value, your chances were better. If the group turned against you, the world became much larger and much colder. So ancient people paid attention to each other too. They noticed moods and repaired tension. They shared food in ways that built trust. And because human beings are human beings, there was probably gossip, awkward flirting, and at least one person who made every situation more dramatic than it needed to be. That small messy stuff is culture. A group does not stay together only because everyone understands calories. It stays together because people create meaning between them. Around a fire, after the most urgent work of the day was done, a story could do more than pass time. It could explain danger without making every child personally test it. It could turn memory into something the group could carry. Life was not empty before work existed. It was full in a different direction. The day had rhythm, but not the rhythm of a clock. It followed hunger, weather, light, danger, opportunity, and the needs of other people. Some days were probably frightening, others were exhausting, and some may have been surprisingly relaxed. If food was found, the weather was kind, and nobody was injured, there may have been hours where nothing urgent needed to happen. Then agriculture changed the shape. Once humans began farming, time became easier to control and harder to escape. Fields demanded attention on a schedule. Stored food could be counted. Land could be owned. Surplus could be guarded. And once there was enough surplus, someone eventually found a way to stand near it and become important. This did not happen overnight, and it did not happen the same way everywhere. But slowly, human life became more organized around labor that could be measured. The day became something other people could claim. Work became less about what the group needed right now and more about systems, property, taxes, debt, rank, and power. Because when we ask what ancient humans did before work existed, part of us is really asking whether the way we live now is natural. We want to know if humans were always meant to wake up tired, trade most of the day for survival, and then squeeze meaning into the leftover hours like we are packing a bag that is already too full. The answer is not that ancient life was better. That would be too easy, and honestly kind of ridiculous. Ancient humans faced pain, hunger, violence, disease, and dangers most of us would not handle with dignity. Nobody should romanticize a world where a bad tooth could become a life crisis, but it is also wrong to imagine them as miserable creatures waiting for civilization to rescue them. So what did ancient humans do all day before work existed? They lived by paying attention. They looked for food, cared for each other, shaped tools, watched the weather, taught children, told stories, and tried to make the next morning possible. But underneath all of that, they were doing something even more basic. They were being human before being human came with a job description. And maybe that is why the question sticks with us. Because tomorrow morning, when the day starts pulling at you before you are ready, some older part of your brain will still be there beneath the noise. It will still want light, warmth, food, people, and a reason to believe the day belongs to you. And maybe the strangest thing about ancient humans is not how different their lives were from ours. Maybe the strangest thing is how much of them is still sitting quietly inside us, wondering when being alive turned into being busy.